Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Leora Tornberg, and I'm the Deputy Director of Communications and Program Management at Trillium Technologies. I'm going to be your host today for the FDL Europe 2023 live showcase, alongside Catherine Ballerin, Cormac Purcell, and James Parr. We are so excited to have you all here today. Just a very warm welcome to everyone joining us to see what our research teams have been working on this summer. So we'll do a quick run of show up top. In a couple of minutes, Cormac is going to take us back through the history of FDL up until the present day to set the scene for today's presentations. Then we're going to have an expert panel on AI for space science, followed by our amazing research presentations. Each of our three teams will have 10 minutes to present, followed by faculty and expert thoughts. After which we'll have another panel to talk about why these results matter, just why they're so monumental. Finally, we're going to celebrate our researchers with an FDL Awards ceremony, which you won't want to miss, before we hear some final thoughts from our partners at ESA Phelab and from FDL. But first, I would like to thank our partners, without whom FDL just wouldn't be possible. Just like us and our research teams, our fantastic partners are equally motivated towards being better stewards for our planet. And through this desire, they've given us amazing support, advice, and expertise that have helped us reach our ambitious goals year after year. I would particularly like to thank Google Cloud. Since the very beginning of FDL, Google Cloud has been a prime supporter of our Open Science for Human Good initiatives. Google Cloud is the backbone on which our FDL projects are built, and we are ever grateful for their support and partnership. I would also like to give a huge thank you to NVIDIA and Scan AI, who year over year go above and beyond to supply our teams with vast computing power and know-how, who enable our projects to reach their potential and provide support along the way. So thank you dearly for your contributions and your partnership. We are going to hear from three teams today that I would like to introduce. First up will be our Heliophysics onboard team, followed by our generalizable SAR team, and finally, our foundation model adopters for disasters team. This very talented and special group of people have been hard at work this summer on the deliverables you're going to see today. And you're going to have a chance to meet them very soon. But first, I'd like to meet our team. We have with us James Parr, the founder and CEO of Trillium Technologies, myself, as well as Cormac Purcell, one of our program directors, and Catherine Ballerin, our AI project manager. We are also joined by some fantastic special guests today, and we're going to have the chance to hear from each and every one of them during the course of the showcase. We are joined today by Nicolas Longipé from ESA Phelab, Massimo Mascaro from Google, Alison Lounge from NVIDIA, Simon Jackman from Oxford, Chedi Reisi from INRIA, Guy Schumann from RSS Hydro, Anna Jungbluth from ESA, and Alex Lavin from Pestor and ISI. Thank you all for supporting our showcase today and for supporting FDL over the years. At this point, Cormac is going to take us backwards in time to talk about what FDL has been working on for the past 6 years with the support of partners like these.
Hello, and welcome again to everybody. Hopefully I can control. Okay, amazingly, 2023 marks our 6th year of FDL Europe, bringing together a community of partners that are truly unique in the world. We really can't emphasize enough that it is your talent and generosity that makes the work possible. So let's recap what you've helped achieve. Already in 2018, the first 2 FDL Europe challenges were focused on using Earth observation data for human good. Our first team assembled a new dataset, a machine learning model, to map informal settlements to support the delivery of aid to 1/3 of the population who live without basic services. Our second team developed an innovative data fusion approach to map floods in urban settings. Their multi-3net tool merged different satellite images to better detect damaged buildings. 2019 saw the Aerosols team win a Best Paper Awards at NeurIPS conference for their global cloud classifier. This was a huge project to use just a few labeled examples of clouds to produce a kilometer resolution map of cloud types covering the whole world each day for an entire year. This was also the year of the World Floods project. World Floods started as an effort to train a lightweight flood mapping algorithm for use on board satellites, which of course have limited energy and compute budgets. The team built a machine learning payload, which was successfully tested in 2021 on deorbit's satellite in low Earth orbit. And outcomes of the same project have been deployed with the Australian government to map recent catastrophic floods. A third team in 2019 investigated the tricky problem of satellite constellation path management to figure out the best way to communicate with satellites that are only intermittently visible from the ground. They built an algorithm that learned to schedule communications similar to the best human controllers, and aspects of this work have been adopted by ESA. 3 challenges were fielded in 2020. For the first challenge, the team created one of the earliest AI systems for rapidly predicting global precipitation in less than 1 minute on a desktop computer. To support the modeling community, they released a benchmark dataset called RainBench and the PyRain processing library. A second team built a system for detecting and tracking marine boundary layer clouds. They performed causal inference to determine how aerosol particles influence the cloud's evolution. Cloud science, of course, is critically important for improving the confidence limits in climate models. And a final team in 2020 investigated the dangers of collisions in low Earth orbit, building an open source Python library that uses Bayesian deep learning to simulate the likelihoods of spacecraft intersections. That work is ongoing with major updates in the pipeline, so stay tuned. In 2021, we returned to the idea of ML payloads with the development of the Raven algorithm. This is a lightweight system for rapidly detecting changes on the ground, such as the burn scars shown here. The algorithm produces compressed information packets that could revolutionize the way satellite constellations operate. And Raven was recently flown on another deorbit satellite, and the team even showed that the algorithm could be retrained in orbit, which as far as we know is a world's first. 2021 also saw the team develop a new system for mapping land use over very large areas in satellite images. They used self-supervised learning, cutting out the need for very labor-intensive labeling. Finally, another team investigated how AI super resolution could tease out the fine details in 10-meter Sentinel-2 data, and this work has blossomed into further projects with ESA. There were 2 disasters-themed challenges last year, the first of which dealt with flooding. This team built Floodcast AI, a new machine learning pipeline that can accurately predict flooding 3 days in advance on gauged rivers from weather forecast data. Floodcast AI leverages recent advances in available historic flooding data to generalize anywhere in the world. Our second team investigated extreme wildfires, building the Pyrocast framework. This includes a unified database of pyrocumulonimbus events and an AI algorithm to detect new pyro-CB events in satellite data. Also, a model to predict the formation of pyro-CBs from wildfires up to 6 hours in advance, and causal discovery tools to investigate the factors that influence their formation. I hope you'll agree that the last 6 years have been incredibly productive. I know that you're going to be thrilled by the results produced by our teams today, the Heliophysics on board team, the generalization SAR team, and the foundation model for disasters team. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Cormac, for taking us back through time. We are going to kick off our first panel now, AI for Space Science, in discussion with Alison Lowndes from NVIDIA, Chedi Raisi from INRIA, Simon Jackman from Oxford, and James Parr from Trillium Technologies. Okay, so I'd like to get us started by asking more of a general question, and maybe everyone can kind of take a turn at answering briefly as you can. How is AI changing science today? James, would you like to get us started?
Yeah, no, thanks so much. And it's interesting because about 3 or 4 years ago, we realized that actually AI was doing science backwards. And so actually I have a diagram that shows this. And I was slightly nervous when I first did the diagram, because it's it's controversial stuff to say, that the original definition of the scientific method could be being upended by, and this is a science method defined by Karl Popper, and that actually when you look at an AI scientific method, it's backwards almost perfectly. But I was pleased to see that other people have come to the same conclusion, and actually recently DeepMind did a Nature paper on it, I think, that this is absolutely truly happening, that that the way data-centric science is allowing us to look at problems in a way that we hadn't before. And this is really the notion that AI is a bit like a revolution in observation, in the same way that the telescope allowed us to understand our place in the universe, in the Copernican revolution, and in the microscope allowed us to understand microbes, and then germ theory, and then modern medicine. The same thing's happening with data, and the AI is kind of a data scope. And so if you see it in those terms, we're really in this incredible revolution where we can now see things that really are beyond human mammalian perception. So things are changing, and it's a very exciting moment. And I think it's amazing when you start seeing the work, particularly NVIDIA's doing with neural operators. This is a particularly powerful direction, and perhaps I'll hand the microphone to Alison to talk about that.
Yeah, it's I mean, everybody kind of knows NVIDIA for gaming, but when you think about even hair, flowing in the wind, etc., it's all down to Fourier transforms. And so why not pivot, which happened with and this is joint work with Caltech, why not pivot from the Euclidean world to the Fourier scale? And it turns out that you can do everything far quicker, and that in itself is a massive jump and leap forward. But another way I think that AI's changed science, for the good and massively, is the open sourcing side. We never used to do that. It used to be pods. Obviously the internet helped, but it used to be pods, and you'd have various announcements, but it was all behind paywalls, and nobody was really sharing. But the open source and the community side of AI has really helped propel forward.
Mm-hmm. Chetty, would you like to add anything to that?
Yes, in fact, a lot of things have already been said, but good afternoon, everyone. So I just wanted to say that, yeah, AI, let's say machine learning and part of computer science are accelerating the pace of scientific discovery. It augments, human capabilities, the way we're working the pipelines, data pipelines, automating tasks. But it also implies a lot of new challenges. You have numerous advantages, but you have challenges related to ethics, data usage, transparency, and all of these considerations. So this is something also that we need to remind ourselves to work on. And yeah, that's it for this question.
Thank you, Chetty. Simon, how do you think AI is changing science?
Oh, I'll perhaps take a slightly different tack, because I came back to Oxford 10 years ago to do some work, set up a job really to take forward how we did data science to do with space and the environment. And after a few years of working with colleagues on traditional modeling methods, we found that they really weren't able to give us the resolution and clarity for decision making that was needed. And a number of my colleagues were not very positive about AI in the different areas of science. They were quite, I would say, resistant to it. And even though they were data scientists, there was a certain caution about it, really, for a number of reasons. I know there's still some caution. What I'd say has changed in the last 5 years is that those people's attitudes have changed and behaviors changed. So on a personal level, I think it's become much more accepted across all sorts of scientific disciplines that would never have previously entertained it. So I think that's part of the transformation of AI, is that it's becoming mainstream in a way that we'd never seen before, and it's breaking down the barriers between scientific disciplines as well. That's really exciting, because it being agnostic to the different disciplines means that we can do very exciting things together. So there we go. That's my bit.
I appreciate that. And thank you for bringing us to a personal level. Maybe we can stay there for a moment. Simon, I'm curious what kind of culture you think best breeds innovation?
Oh, I was remembering that I've been involved. I'm long in the tooth enough to have been involved in this with James and colleagues and Alison and Jeddy for a long time. So I've watched in the early days when we used to host it down the road from where this picture is, physically, and see the environment that was created by your team, which to me was almost the critical element to making this work. Others would agree that the culture actually underpins everything. And so I saw excellence in there, which we still see. So culture of excellence, we as a university hold that, but I think FDL has held that. Really pushing to be the best that we can be is a wonderful thing if you can balance it with really brilliantly getting down into how people operate and some of the challenges with their behaviors and learning and teamwork and all of that, where I have felt over all these years that FDL has been able to balance those two really brilliantly. And I think that ability to deal with conflict, the ability to have fun and enable that fun, the ability to have the wow factor, which good old James constantly brings to it, which is fabulous. These are the ingredients that keep everybody moving, because what you need in the sort of sprint we're talking about is momentum to keep things moving and to overcome barriers. So I think that's what we've been looking for, and which still to my mind forms a key part of what we talk about. They talk about, you know, culture eating strategy for breakfast, and to me it's a funny old way of saying it, but it's actually that the culture is so important. So I'm really grateful to you guys as a team for effectively holding that. You know how you hold a culture for a long time and you keep going with it, and I think you've done that in running FDL. So congratulations for getting to this point and maintaining such a great environment for people. And I think from everything I've talked to with all of our students who have gone through how I've met, it's just inspiring, and they can't let go afterwards. They still want to be involved in FDL. And I think, well, that speaks for itself, doesn't it? So there we go.
Thank you, Simon. James, do you want to add anything onto that?
Oh no! Now I have to bring the wow factor after that setup. But Simon, no, thank you so much. And I mean, I think you did sum it up beautifully, and that idea that we're trying to create a culture where it's okay to think big, and it's okay to sort of push and do extraordinary work, because actually we need to do extraordinary work because of the external situation we're in, and then the sort of incredible partners that have sort of shared the vision, and you've been there since the very beginning, and I'm super grateful of your partnership in Oxford, and of course Alison, you know, who was our first you know, commercial partner right at the very beginning, who sort of believed in the vision. Again, as Simon said, when AI wasn't really a thing, in fact we didn't say AI, we said data science. We didn't even sort of, that again, that was sort of whispered But now it's a thing, and now it's really gaining momentum, and I'm super grateful to Alison, and then Chetty, of course, as well, who with Yaron Gal is the co-chair of our AI technical committee. And Simon mentioned this too. We started as a sort of idea that you could bring researchers together, and perhaps you could do research quickly, and perhaps you could partner with the private sector to keep the sort of costs reasonable. But we never really dreamed that we'd be doing work that was cutting edge on a global scale. And really that's, I want to thank Chetty and Yaron and our faculty, because they really have allowed us to operate right at the highest level. And it's pinch yourself stuff that we can, for a relatively small organization, we can be there standing shoulder to shoulder with the big labs, and often beat them to the punch in many ways. So very grateful to everybody on this Zoom call right now, because you guys have allowed us to do what we've achieved.
I appreciate that. Alison, what has the FDL program, in your opinion, contributed to the discussion of AI and space science?
I'd probably have to say mostly speed, and not just the obvious. What teams accomplish in only 8 weeks, but right now the biggest conflict that we have is time to learn. Simon talked about this just now. Time to learn how to harness this formidable tech, and keep in mind the ethics that Chetty was talking about, because AI is progressing weekly. That's far faster than most people can learn. And I work at the forefront of this. I'm focused on the space industry, and of course, embedded into the hardware, which is also progressing just as fast. But FDL shows this. They show this year in, year out. And for the past 8 years, FDL Europe 6 years. But we started in the US. So 8 years ago, and I'm quoting Kevin Kelly here. We've taken X and added AI for 8 years. And this year, we've actually seen specifically how it's not just single GPUs anymore. I remember going to HQ back in 2016 to pick up a digits box, which was the precursor to DGX servers. And then, physically bringing the GPUs to Seti's old office to the teams to use. But now everything's in the cloud. I was trading CNNs from my bedroom in 2015, using a £200 cute turquoise little Chrome box that just SSH'd into a GPU that we'd set up in my university cluster, and that was the only one that they had back then. I also remember it took nearly 2 weeks to download ImageNet, but today, it's pods of multi-GPU servers, and I mean the compute needed for LLMs is just insane. It's thousands and thousands of GPUs, and FDL highlights all this. I just wish we had the resources and time to run the program twice a year, because folks really need to catch up. We need to deploy this research yesterday. And it's not just the research, it's also, what's going fast as well is the V&V, is the verification and the validation side of it. But this speed and this pace has allowed this generative AI era that we're in today, artificial intelligent agents that are capable of not just understanding text and images, but also, genes, molecules, heliophysics, and stuff we haven't even heard of yet. And, they're able to talk to us about it all now. HAL 9000 is already here, and he will open the pod bay doors, Dave. So, I mean, I can't wait for this year's teams results, and for them to show off all the latest advances, and basically they will then open source, as I said earlier, and then everyone can catch up. And as always, brimming with pride to be involved here. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Alison. Thank you, James, Simon, and Chetty. It's time to go to our first presentation of the day. So I'm going to welcome up the Heliophysics onboard team to get us started.
The ability to detect and warn of dangerous solar events is crucial for safeguarding our infrastructure on Earth and in space. Space agencies today can give a 30-minute warning in advance of solar events, thanks in part to work done by the FDL over the last years. Expanding the time window of warnings is at the heart of what a Heliophysics onboard team worked on this summer. One way of spotting solar events earlier is to monitor solar activity from a head of Earth perspective. ESA's Visual mission, which is due to launch later this decade, will be positioned at the 5th Lagrange point to provide a side view of the Sun and detect potentially hazardous solar activity before it comes into view from Earth. But even with more data, there are many other challenges, such as limited computing power on board and low telemetry bandwidth, that our team had to think through in order to enable near real-time space weather awareness. I'm excited to see the work that the Heliophysics onboard team has done over the last 8 weeks. Thank you to the researchers for their hard work and dedication, and to the faculty, partners, and experts who made this work possible.
Well then, welcome to our presentation. We are the Space Situational Awareness live twin for Space Weather team. And today, my name is Martin. Today, we are going to present to you the work that we have been carrying out as part of the FDL program over the past 8 weeks. Our project focused on investigating whether we can improve the nowcasting of space weather events by having AI on board a spacecraft. Now, to begin with, here's our team. We have 4 researchers whom you will hear from today, as well as 3 brilliant faculty members in Robert, Josh, and Ayana. For the machine learning expert side of things, we have Hala and Chairman, and then for the space weather domain expert side of things, we have Emma and myself. Now, to start with, imagine you're waking up to only really one type of notification. A coronal mass ejection has been detected at CME for short, by the way. The Sun appears to have had a major mass output, which might potentially be headed straight for us. Now, these swaths of plasma, super hot material from the outer edges of the Sun, can react with the Earth's magnetic field and then potentially cause outages in our electric grid if they are strong enough. Now, while they do rarely hit Earth, considering that they can fly out from the Sun in all directions, if they do hit, even stronger ones might be difficult to detect early enough for us to properly react and prepare for them. On top of that, we might even be overdue for one. Now, will this one hit? Will it pass by safely? If it does hit, what would such a hit entail? There are some historical examples of what happens when a very strong CME hits Earth. But first, we do need to consider what is happening in general, which Emma will now go into further.
Thank you, Martin. Yes, so here we see how these events can interact with and have an impact on Earth. We can see that as the CME propagates outwards towards us, it interacts with the Earth's magnetosphere, and depending on how strong this interaction is, it can trigger a geomagnetic storm and release a slew of charged particles. When these charged particles hit our atmosphere, they can produce quite beautiful phenomena, auroras, the northern lights, as you can see here. But unfortunately, this free current charging around the Earth can also be dangerous. So as an example, let's rewind time back 150 years to 1859 to the largest solar storm ever recorded, which is known as the Carrington event. This event sparked major aurora events worldwide, which could be seen as far south as the Caribbean. But it also caused noticeable disruption in the telecommunications networks and electric grids of the day, which, as you can imagine, are much less extensive than we have today. Now, we know that these events happen fairly regularly, although not always on scales as large as this, as they leave evidence in the polar ice caps. And in fact, if we fast forward to 1989, a much smaller CME caused major disruption over Quebec, causing 9 hours of total blackout and then several days of organized recovery efforts. So we know that these events happen, and we know that they will happen again. We can clearly see from this figure in green that our global energy usage is higher than ever. And as our reliance on technology as a society grows, the impacts of an event like this could be more severe and even more disruptive for our daily lives. We can also see in yellow that we're now approaching a new solar maximum, where the activity of the Sun is ramping up during its periodic activity cycle. And so studying these events so that we can be prepared to protect our infrastructure, our power grids, satellites and aeroplanes is more important than ever. Of course, there are already precautions being taken today, but these rely on advanced early warning systems, and predicting when these CMEs might strike is a difficult problem. The challenges start right at the beginning, as right now we cannot predict when CMEs will erupt. We can only detect and react to them as these events unfold. Once we do detect a CME, understanding fully how it might evolve in 3D and impact us is also challenging, especially if we only have images taken from instruments at limited viewpoints. For example, if a CME is heading straight towards us on the Earth, determining its velocity and arrival time from our position alone is not possible. But we would also have problems if we only observe it from space, as we can see here from coronagraph images taken simultaneously from 2 different spacecraft vantage points, where we can see that a CME is present in the one on the left, but hardly at all in the other viewpoints on the right. Another problem is that several aspects of this detection are currently performed with manual fitting by trained experts, which can be time intensive and therefore decrease the time we might have to react. And so to improve our early warning of these events, we first need a dedicated extra viewpoint in space to supplement what we have on and around the Earth, to give us the extra data we need to overcome the challenges associated with having only limited views of the CME. And then we can look towards machine learning informed systems to help us better process this data in an automated way, learning the complex interactions and underlying physics which makes the task so difficult, to enhance our predictions, and even to have these models directly on board to increase the time we would have to react. And these aspects of our approach will now be explained in more detail by Hala.
Thank you, Emma. So the ESA Vision mission, planned in 2029, will be dedicated to monitoring and predicting space weather activity and providing a timely warning of extreme solar events. This will be the first mission to sit at the L5 stable Lagrange point in the Earth-Sun system at 60 degrees behind the Earth, allowing us to get a new side view of the Sun so we can observe early solar events, especially those heading towards our home planet. This unique data will allow us to build live-twin heliospheric models to predict large solar activities like CMEs, but with more precision than before. As with this new L5 viewpoint, we will have triangulation so we can predict CME's direction with less uncertainty. The Vision mission could also have the required hardware to run machine learning systems on board for further improving early warnings. While L5 will have its own challenges, for instance, an 8-minute downlink time, which limits the amount of time we have to react to CMEs, we are certain that there are methods of mitigating such issues to help us get better early warnings here on Earth in a faster way. Until Vision is launched, we can make use of the existing twin stereo satellites, also the SOHO Solar Observatory mission, which sits in L1 close to the Earth, as well as simulated data, which can act as proxy data for what we will have at L5. And from this, we aim to build a digital twin of the inner solar system to predict CME's impacts, which can be further improved and built upon as more space weather satellites are launched beyond Vision. So we took inspiration from Greek mythology and named our solution Icarus, which stands for "Is a CME approaching rapidly towards us?" Our machine learning pipeline starts on board the Vision satellite. So we have a classifier on board informing us whether it sees a potential CME from satellite images. Then this classifier flags to take lots of extra observations. But downlinking this observation directly would take days, longer than the time it takes for the CME to travel to Earth. That's why we compress the observations before downlinking them to Earth. Once these observations are on Earth, then combined with other viewpoints from other satellites, for example SOHO, we train a model to reconstruct the CME. Our machine learning solution aims to reconstruct a live twin of this rich heliospheric data in order to predict CME parameters. This enables us to build a volume of information regarding the density and velocity of a CME, even from as few as 2 viewpoints. So we built on last year's FDL model and trained a nerve architecture for 3D reconstruction, but in a physics-informed manner, by incorporating continuity equations on plasma mass and radial velocities to ensure the consistency of our predictions with reality. And finally, we extract information from the 3D reconstruction and estimate the CME parameters, which we can use to derive the probability of CMEs hitting the Earth. I will now hand over to Sherman, who will present our main results.
Thank you, Hala. Here we show a demo to give you an idea of how the outputs of our model look like. The first two images to the left are the reconstruction of simulation data, while the rightmost one is our density prediction. In this video sequence, we start from the visual point of view, which gives the side view of the CME and see the CME erupting. And then we stop the temporal evolution and rotate to the view of the Earth. Finally, we fix the viewpoint and see the CME coming directly towards us on Earth. Our model produces a heliospheric live twin reconstruction of CME density, allowing early detection as it emerges from the sun's corona and propagates outwards in space. And don't worry, we have an early enough warning, so no damage has been made this time. At this point, a 3D CME reconstruction has been achieved through our model. We're also able to estimate key CME parameters such as density, mean velocity, and direction for every element of the CME, which are essential for assessing the potential impact with Earth, advancing what is currently done manually. Our investigation serves as a proof of concept for onboard machine learning and 3D CME reconstruction, which opens up opportunities to use AI to assist humans in decision-making for improving reaction time on Earth. Who knows, one day this system might be the basis for an early warning system that will help save the world from a Carrington-level CME impact. Once again, we are the Helio team, and we would like to thank the FDL, our funders and partners for their support. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Heliophysics onboard team. We are now going to move on to our faculty thoughts portion of the presentation. During the 8 weeks of the research sprints, our teams were supported by dedicated and expert faculty. With us today is Robert Jarolim from the University of Graz in Austria, Josh Veach-Michaelis from ETH Zurich, and Joanna Buri from the University of Helsinki. So, Joanna, I want to start with you. What most excited you about the Heliophysics onboard presentation?
Well, thanks, Lear, and thanks to the team. Well, where to begin? We can't really stress enough that these are the outcomes of an 8-week research sprint, right? And we had the joy to work with a team that chose to focus on 3 different fronts in such a limited time span. So we had the onboard CME detection, onboard compression, and the ground-based 3D CME reconstruction. So overall, a very diverse end-to-end pipeline with very challenging physical and technical components. And each of them was supported by very recent and relevant ML methods.
Yeah, I definitely agree. What excites me most about this research is the space weather component. So as the team has already emphasized this, we know that solar storms like the Carrington event will happen again, and we need to prepare for this. And the tool that the team has developed here allows us to get a better estimate about CME parameters and the potential impact of CMEs on Earth. But it also gives us a better understanding of the structure of our heliosphere. So I think this is overall very interesting and important research.
Yeah, and on the onboard side, it's a very young field, especially for space weather. So it's a great opportunity to see, what's feasible to do. And even though some of the methods that we've done seem quite simple, classification and compression, the modeling involved is very challenging because it's very different data to what you normally train with. And the data is, we don't have real data from the satellite yet. So I think this end-to-end pipeline is both ambitious, but it really represents an exciting vision for how onboard and ground processing can be complementary to each other.
And in general, from the ML side, I think I would say there are 2 main challenges of ML in space applications. And the first one is the knowledge transfer that needs to happen between physicists and ML experts, right? And it is so refreshing to see how FDL teams every year find new ways to facilitate this interdisciplinary dialogue. And the second challenge, I could say, is to develop tailor-made ML solutions for space where modeling is physically constrained using, for instance, continuity equations for mass or energy or momentum. And I think the Helio team this year really shined over both of these ML challenges and with applications that are extremely relevant to the ML community at the moment.
Thanks, Joanna. Thanks, everyone. I'm curious what you see as potential next steps for this research. Josh, maybe you can get us started on that one.
Yeah, I mean, so in previous FDL years, we've partnered with people like deOrbit to prove that onboard ML is viable for time-critical Earth observation tasks, things like disaster response. And I think this is our chance to prove we can do the same for space weather. And I'm really looking forward to continuing this work with the team and the space weather community to show how we can integrate these methods with current sort of human decision making.
And I would say from the physics perspective, there having an estimate about the CME parameters is an important step and an important step in the right direction here. But ultimately, it's really the magnetic field that has the primary impact on Earth's magnetosphere. So I'm most curious for the future to see how we can even extend this approach, include more physics into those reconstructions, in the form of magnetic field information as well, or can potentially explore other data sources that we can incorporate to better enhance our physical understanding of our heliosphere.
Exactly, and to extend on what Robert just said, we need to think also about future missions, right? There's more and more missions launching as our technological infrastructure evolves. So with future missions like SSVGL, for example, we will get our hands on more data from different viewpoints around our star, and developing methods like this is important to make efficient use of all the available data sources. So we're thinking basically, how can we prepare best for the upcoming solar missions? How can we make use of all data projects that are available at the moment, curate them, and utilize recent ML developments and computational resources to extend this live twin representation of our heliosphere.
Thank you, Joanna. Thank you, Robert and Josh, for those words of inspiration. It is time now to move on to presentation number 2 for the day. We're going to see now the generalizable SAR team.
Synthetic aperture radar, or SAR technology, is a great remote sensing sensor, as it images the Earth's surface regardless of weather condition and lighting. SAR microwave radar waves can penetrate the canopy and measure the scattering and reflection pattern of the underlying terrain. It can detect millimeter level change on the ground and be sensitive to many bio and geophysical parameters of great importance to measure the state of our blue planet. In 2022, FDL developed a machine learning pipeline for landslide detection that used SAR. However, this model struggled to maintain high performance when applied to new location or times. This lack of generalization capability due to the complexity of SAR data has posed a hurdle in developing self-supervised learning techniques applied to SAR that can easily be adapted to multiple use cases. With this year's challenge, the generalizable SAR team aimed to create a foundation model for analyzing SAR imagery and understanding the challenges of creating flexible but robust machine learning model for a variety of downstream applications. This included dealing with complex polarimetric and interferometric SAR data, generalizing across time and space domain, developing tooling to facilitate easy analysis and compelling visualization, and exploiting huge quantities of unlabeled SAR data coming from the European Sentinel-1 mission. Thank you to the SAR team researchers, faculty reviewers, and all our partners for supporting this worthy effort. Thanks.
Hi everyone, welcome to our team showcase. We are the generalizable SAR team. Our lovely team members are Freddy, Raul, and Anna as our faculty advisors, and Laura, Joseph, Alejandro, Matthew, and myself, Francisco, as researchers. Our planet is suffering from many environmental problems, and the natural disasters are increasing in frequency and intensity. We are seeing more floods, fires, hurricanes, etc. We will have witnessed last month's temperature records all around the world. The scientific community is doing a great effort to understand and address these problems. For example, Earth observation is used to monitor the land to rapidly detect floods and fires and react to them in time. However, this takes a lot of time and effort and needs investment, computing power, access to the data, and expert knowledge. That's why we need AI. AI can help us to process this data and obtain insights from it. We are creating foundational generalizable AI models that can be used as facilitators to solve multiple tasks. We will help the community to improve their own research without the cumbersome process of creating their own models from scratch. We have different types of satellites. We have optical satellites that use the sun's light, and we also have radar satellites that use radar to collect data. And this is a satellite we are using to build our models, the Synthetic Aperture Radar, SAR. It is very useful because it can be collected at any time of the day and in any weather condition. Also, we can measure changes with millimeter precision. This is useful to monitor changes in the Earth's surface. For example, we can monitor the melting of glaciers or the movement of tectonic plates, or changes in structures, water content, and land characteristics. But SAR data is complex. It is not easy to interpret. It requires expert knowledge. It has different kinds of data, for example, amplitude and phase that can be used for interferometry. And the data is not always available for the same location. So we need consistent global datasets for SAR. And now Alejandro will explain more about those datasets we were building for this purpose. Thank you.
Thank you, Fran. Hi, I am Alejandro. Well, as Fran described it before, we built machine learning ready datasets that can be used for a variety of SAR applications. Our data spans 6 locations, covering diverse SAR input data, including SAR amplitude, interferograms, and coherence, and many downstream tasks. But how can we derive valuable insights from this wealth of information? Using machine learning, of course, but machine learning for Earth observation is hard. We have few labels available. And as the SAR team from FDL 2022 has shown, SAR models are geographically localized. They train a model for landslide detection on one region and apply it to an unseen region. The resulting model didn't generalize well. So what if we tell you that we are developing generalizable AI foundational model for SAR data that can be used anywhere and with any kind of input data? It is important to emphasize that the term foundational in this context refers to a model that has undergone extensive training using vast and diverse planetary images. To enable this possibility, we developed a flexible machine learning pipeline that allows you to utilize different SAR input imagery for pre-training models. This pre-training occurs without the need for explicit labels. Rather, the model is pre-trained solely using the images. Subsequently, this pre-trained model can be employed in various downstream tasks, including but not limited to vegetation estimation and land cover classification. These novel models can aid in Earth system monitoring and disaster response. I am now passing the voice to Matt, who will explain our promising results on studying vegetation, changes, and land cover and floods.
Thanks, Alejandro. So we've been talking about foundation models so far, but what did we actually do? So we went to the ML literature and we took 4 state-of-the-art foundation model architectures and we adapted them to SAR data. And broadly speaking, we applied 2 different kinds of special pre-training tasks. These are ones which don't require any human labeling. So for the first task, we take a single SAR image as input and we cover parts of it up and ask the model to imagine what might have been there before. For the second scheme, we take 2 SAR images as the input from different sensors, and we ask the model to guess whether these images from different sensors were taken at the same location. So let's start with one of the easier tasks, which is vegetation prediction. So all we're doing here for vegetation prediction is we take a tile of SAR data and we ask the model downstream after it's been pre-trained to then predict what percentage of this tile is covered by vegetation. So if I could direct your eyes over to the left, the only number you really need to pay attention to in these plots is the one in bold font just below the x-axis. And what that is the percentage of labels we needed downstream to replicate the performance of a baseline model that used all the labels without pre-training. So in the case of Europe, which is the top graph, This is a region that has been seen before during the pre-training. And in this case, we were able to reduce the need for labels downstream by 95%, which is exceptionally strong. On the bottom graph, this is South America, a region that has not been seen even during the pre-training, but only has used downstream. We're able to reduce the need for labels by over 99%. So we needed 0.8% of the original labels. But what does about 1% of the data actually look like? Well, if you look over to the left on this on your screen now, you should be able to see this picture of Europe, which looks sort of like it's got chicken pox with these red spots. Together, these red spots make up 1% of the total area of Europe. And if I was to take these and squish them into big blobs somewhere in the middle, it would be about the size of Switzerland, plus or minus 5%. If you cast your eyes now over to the right, on the top right, you can see our predictions of vegetation using the model that's trained only on the 1% data, and also what the vegetation actually looks like in Europe in the bottom right. And hopefully you'll have as much difficulty as I do in telling these things apart. Let's look at something slightly more difficult now. So one of the other tasks we mentioned was land cover, and land cover is an example of a task in machine learning that we call segmentation. And all that means is I'm going to go through the images and pixel by pixel, I'm going to sort the pixel into some semantic category and give it a label. So each pixel might belong to forest or a built up area or a river, etc. And again, in this case, in a region that we've not even seen during pre-training, South America, we're able to reduce the need for labels by over 90%. And again, visually in the bottom left, the predictions look fairly convincing, although you can probably tell them apart if you squint a bit. So the final task that we mentioned in our sort of preamble was flood detection, and this is something that is still ongoing. Now, flood detection is difficult, more so than the first two tasks, because it takes two images as input, one from potentially before a flood and one from after the hypervertical flood. Secondly, it's not quite as simple as just doing, say, land cover classification on two different tasks and then looking for the difference. So, for example, you may have standing water somewhere which is permanent, but if it gets deeper, but still constitutes a flood. And thirdly and finally, there are some nuances regarding how the data is stored that make it a bit more difficult to deal with than the first two tasks. But this work is still ongoing, and initial results are extremely promising. We're making good headway, so please stay tuned for more information on this. Now I'll hand you over to Laura, who'll chat a bit more about the impact that we hope this work will have downstream on practitioners and the science community.
Thanks, Matt. I'm Laura, and our project will enable the availability of several machine learning ready datasets, both from SAR data and from SAR applications. Also, a flexible and modular machine learning pipeline will be released so that the user will be able to easily change the data or the model if needed. And of course, the most important product of our project is the pre-trained models that will avoid the user train bigger models, which require high computation resources and time. This may allow them to obtain quicker predictions and will help, for instance, when managing the response of natural disasters. So we are now in the first step towards planetary scale Earth observation foundation models, where different types of data will be taken into account for a wide range of applications that will help us face the changing times that we are undergoing on our planet Earth. So community, are we ready to take our work to the next level and help us develop a foundation model that will predict anywhere, anytime, for any task and with any data? It is the time to show the world how AI will help us when helping others. And of course, this work wouldn't have been possible without the support of FDL founders and partners. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Laura. Thank you, Generalizable SAR team, for the fantastic presentation. We are now ready to move on to our faculty thoughts portion. And with us today are Freddy Calaitzis from Oxford and Raul Ramos-Boyan from the Universidad de Antioquia in Medellin, Colombia. So to get us started, we also have Anna Youngbluth with us. To get us started, Freddy, maybe you can answer what excited you most about this presentation?
Well, the big picture to me is that traditionally, the way we've been teaching computers how to solve tasks has been quite primitive, relatively speaking. Like, we always have to give them what is the ground truth, and the ground truth is very expensive to acquire. We have to use expert knowledge. Now, in certain tasks, in certain real-world situations, we don't have enough budget or resources to acquire that expert knowledge. what we do is that we leverage the knowledge that we have as human beings. For instance, we know that we can learn a lot of things since we're born without requiring experts to label things for us. We can just use our own evolution. So somehow along the way, especially in the last 5 years, we have endowed computers with that ability. We can now kind of bootstrap the computers in a way that they can learn from a lot of data, satellite imagery, without requiring expert labels. And then we can rely on that ability to further fine-tune them by using expert labels for specific tasks like detection of vegetation or floods, etc.
Thanks, Freddie. Anna, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, of course. So I was very fortunate to be able to join the team as an advisor from ESA for the last 8 weeks. And I think looking at the team's presentation now and reflecting back on the initial conversations that we've had at the very beginning of the summer and the plan that we've set out for, you know, the goals that we wanted to achieve over the summer, it's really been incredible to see how much work the team has managed to get done in these 8 weeks. And really resonating with what the Heliophysics team has said, these 8 weeks are really very short, and actually it's less time that you can really spend coding. So to see all of this progress in really such a short period of time that all of these amazing researchers have done is really absolutely mind-blowing. And I think that just really shows how much innovative research you can get done when you provide environments for people to work together, to learn from each other and grow together. And of course, when you have compute resources like what we had available, thanks to the wonderful partners. So yeah, it's a really great close to the summer.
I agree. Raul, what most excited you about the presentation today?
Well, for one, it is, as Anna just said, getting like four state-of-the-art models of self-supervised learning to work in a single pipeline, in a single machine pipeline, is no small engineering feat by itself. But also this would have not been possible without the individual excellence of each one of the members of the team. That is key. The coherence that we achieve throughout the work. So it is not just 7 individuals in their caves and then coming up with whatever they do. What we have been, I mean, in terms of the methodology that the FDL puts forward for us, and it's been key. And of course, without the computer resources, this wouldn't be possible. I mean, without the Google Cloud platform and the NVIDIA DGX machines and the fantastic support that we have been getting from NVIDIA, this wouldn't be possible. But I think there are 2 things which I value the most. Well, one of them, it is the doors that this opens for the future. I think we are much more ready to train planetary-wide foundation models for SAR, and I think this in the long run is going to be very useful. But even beyond that, I think this has been a learning experience for all of us in the team, technically, organizationally, personally, and I couldn't be more proud from that.
Thank you, Raul. And speaking of the future, Freddie, what do you see as next steps for this research?
Well, in the world of machine learning, bigger is better. So if we want to handle planetary scale deployment, then we need to be able to handle this bigger amounts of data, which means we need more compute. But sometimes compute is not just the answer, it's not always the answer. Sometimes we have to be smart, and we should be able to handle more data, but more efficiently without necessarily requiring more compute. I mean, again, looking back at us, the way we function, we don't need 10 brains to learn about the world, right? So there's something very efficient going on that nature has figured out for us that is waiting for us to discover.
Thanks, Freddie. Anna, would you like to answer as well? What are you excited about for the next steps?
Yeah, I mean, I think Freddie and Raul have summarized it perfectly. Having now such a modular pipeline that we can scale up from to potential planetary scale foundation models is really, really exciting. But also the data sets that the team generated, it's close to 40 terabytes of data spanning 6 regions in the world, and you've seen the wealth of downstream tasks that we have data for. I think this is going to create a really nice benchmarking data sets for future efforts in this area. So very excited to see what the team makes of the current state of the project, and also where the FDL will take it in years to come.
I completely agree. And thank you all for your kind words, your
As you very much know, large language models have boomed in the past months and years across a lot of sectors and industries, and they have uncovered new capabilities every day. But much is still to be explored in terms of how LLM can be used to model systems for the good of all humankind, and particularly in science and meteorology. The foundational model adapters for disaster team aim to use LLMs to improve the curation, extraction, interpretation, and dispatching of key insights regarding natural disasters in order to deliver information to disaster management teams in a more timely way and grow our disaster resilience as a society. The team has chosen to focus their work on one of the most impactful disasters in the world, flooding. By combining Earth observation, flood prediction models, flood mapping tools, humans-in-the-loop methodologies, and weather monitoring system with LLMs, they endeavored to create an NLP agent that could generate accurate and tailored flood reports used to assess disaster impact across the globe. They've been hard at work this summer, and on behalf of Google Cloud and myself, I'd like to really thank them for putting all their effort in this worthy pursuit, and to boldly chart a new area where LLM can be helpful and impactful for all humankind. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today to talk about the work that the Foundation Model for Disasters team have done over the last 8 weeks. I'll start by introducing our team. The researcher team made up of Paul Darm and myself, Grace Colvard, both of us PhD students working in AI, have been supported by our wonderful faculty members, Noah Kazmanoff and Leo Silverberg. In our talk today, I'm going to be introducing the problem we focused on, the challenges we face and how we tackled them, before handing over to Paul, who will talk about the solution we built and how we hope to see it used. In the past 2 decades, we've witnessed the formidable power of nature, but there's one natural disaster that stands out in its frequency and impact: floods. With the combined force of climate change, deforestation, and urban sprawl, our vulnerability to flooding has significantly increased. Regions that were once considered safe from floods are now regularly inundated, to the point where almost a quarter of the world's population lives on a floodplain. It's probably not a surprise to all of you to hear that the frequency and severity of extreme weather events is increasing due to climate change, but you may be surprised to hear that over the last 25 years, floods have affected more people globally than any other natural disaster. For us, this wasn't just a statistic, it was a call to action. We've identified the part of the flood response where our team skill set could provide the most benefit. After the immediate response to the flood is over, there is a period of research and investigation. The flooded areas are mapped and impact reports are written in order to provide aid agencies with information needed to make relief decisions. You can see here on the right an example of a one-page flood summary from the UN's OCHA agency. These flood reports take time and skill to create, and relief agencies have a limited amount of manpower available. Our challenge was then to automate this part of flood reporting, or in other words, use machine learning to aid in the creation of accurate, fast, detailed, and useful flood reports. The type of machine learning we have used are models called large language models. You may have heard of chatbots like ChatGPT or Bard. LLMs are the engine behind these chatbots. In simple terms, LLMs are next word prediction engines trained on huge amounts of textual data. State-of-the-art LLMs are successful in a whole manner of tasks that you can see here on the slide. We chose to use LLMs due to their success in text summarization, question and answer, and common sense reasoning, tasks that are critical in creating flood reports. By offloading parts of the report creation to LLMs, we reduce the cognitive load for report creators at aid agencies. Flood report creation generally follows the following timeline. After the event, receiving satellite data and mapping the flood extent takes at least 2 to 3 days. Following that, the investigation period can take up to 4 weeks before a flood report is created. Our research showed that LLMs can help with steps throughout the whole of the flood report creation process. And now I'll hand over to Paul, who's going to introduce the tool that we've built.
Thank you so much, Grace. Hi, I'm Paul, and now it's my great pleasure to introduce to you our tool, FloodBrain, that we have been working on hard during the last 8 weeks. It contains 3 features. First, it generates a situational flood report. Second, it also provides a map which brings more context to that flood. And third of all, it also has a chatbot functionality which allows you to interact with the tool. But before I talk about all these features in more detail, I first want to talk more about the main pipeline that you use to generate the situational flood reports. So obviously, we were inspired by how humans extract information. And just to showcase the simple process, in case you're interested about a specific flood, you might want to ask how many people have been affected during this flood. You obviously do a Google web search, you find the website, you extract the answer, and then based on that, you can write this in your flood report. And this simple sequence of steps you can imitate with a large language model. So similarly, you can automate the Google web search. You can then extract the information from the website, use this as input into a large language model, which then allows the large language model to write an answer which answers your question. Now, the cool thing about using large language models is that you can obviously automate this process and parallelize it. So you can be way quicker than any human could ever be. And on the same time, you can also provide not just one answer, but 3 answers to the same question, which already gives you some form of robustness by allowing you to easily check if your answers are correct or not. Now we scale this even further. And obviously, when you create a situational flood report, you might be interested in not just asking about one question, but actually about multiple questions. For example, what is the severity of the flooding? How much rainfall fell during the flood or shortly before? Or, which goes hand in hand with that question, what was the cause of this flood? Now we can take all of this information, all of these answers using the same pipeline, use that information and use it as input into another LLM, which works as a summarization tool, which then creates you this very nice coherent flood report. Now, by speeding up the process, we obviously reduce the time to create such a flood report. And as everyone will probably understand, time is an important asset when we talk about disasters. So now I want to show you how this tool looks like on our website. So again, you can see our flood report. And what you can also see is a list of URL links, which show you where we got this information from. And this already tries to tackle one major problem with large language models, which is that sometimes you're not really sure where they got their facts from. In this case, by constraining the output of the large language model to take its inspiration from the websites, we already constrain it in that way. And we also allow the user to easily check if the information that he provided is accurate or not by going to the websites. We took this another step further by not just providing the websites, but actually implementing a relatively easy or simple but effective pipeline, which allows the user to inspect directly the websites. We call this inspect. So for this example, you can see for the question, who has already responded to this flood? You can see FloodBrain's answer, Italian Civil Protection System. And you can also see a snippet from the website where we found the large language model based its answer on. And what we hoped of achieving by this is allow the user to see the transparency or be more transparent in producing the output, and in return, increase trustworthiness in the tool, and finally, hopefully increase the usefulness of our tool. Now, these flood reports are great, but sometimes you also need to provide a bit of context in the form of a map. And this is exactly what we did. We also provide a map with the area of interest for each flood. What we also employed was a machine learning pipeline, which was developed during a previous FDL flood challenge called FloodMapper. This pipeline compares different satellite images and creates a flood map, which allows the user in return to easily grasp which were the most affected areas during a flooding. We also provide additional metadata such as the population density, residential areas, or roads, so the user can easily understand where to put where to target his efforts on. Now, obviously, no modern website would be complete without a chatbot, right? So this is exactly what we also implemented. Now, this chatbot actually has a real background because while developing, we spoke to some experts and they told us that they would be interested in personalizing, customizing the flood report. And this is exactly what this chatbot allows you to do. It uses the same pipeline components that we developed for the summarization part, but allows the user to ask his own questions. So for example, for this example, here we asked the chatbot what rivers were overflooded during the flood. And you can see the chatbot gives its answer and also provides a URL link again for the user to check out himself. Now I want to show you how this all looks in the wild. So putting this all together, this is our user interface on our tool website, floodbrain.com. On the left, again, you can see the chat. In the middle, you can see the report, and on the right, the map. And you can check it out just now by going on floodbrain.com and entering our password, floodbrain. And this is exactly what I would invite you to do after the showcase. So if you go to our website, you can just start off by generating a flood report, which is very easy. And you could also use our evaluate feature, which would allow us in return, maybe in the future, to train our own large language model and adapt the output to the preferences of our users. And with that, I want to go back to the timeline that we showed you in the beginning. So if we compare the timeline that would take a human to do the report to the one of FloodBrain, we can see that we have a huge increase in efficiency. We are especially proud of the significant reduction of time of creating the situational report, which takes sometimes days or weeks to now just under 1 hour. Basically, the moment a news website releases an article about the flood, we can start FloodBrain. And obviously, by reducing this time, we can use the time hopefully more efficiently to help people and maybe in the end, even save people's life. We are currently in conversation with humanitarian relief agencies, such as OCA or the World Food Programme. And we're really excited to see where this could bring us in the future. And with that, I want to thank our partners and sponsors, FDL, and obviously also the audience for tuning in today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul and Grace, FM Adopters for Disasters team, for that wonderful presentation. We're going to move on to our faculty thoughts portion with Leonard Silverberg from Trillium Technologies and Noah Kasdanoff from New York University. So Leo, maybe we can start with you. What excited you about that presentation?
Oh, so much. What exciting work. I want to, again, thank Paul and Grace and Noah for the last 8 weeks. It's been amazing. Something that really stood out to me over the last 8 weeks has been the sort of ability to innovate in public, if I can say that. We've been deploying this tool live as we've been building it, and that's been super exciting, being able to use these state-of-the-art language models and all of that. Of course, thanks to Google Cloud, has been super crucial to the development of this. Something else that really stands out, I think, from the presentation is the transparency component. I think that's something that I haven't really seen that much other people do, and it's very interesting, this sort of inspect tab and being able to see the thought process of large language models, how they make their decisions and how they decide on what information to show. I think that's super exciting. I'll hand over to Noah.
Yep. Thank you, Leo. And yeah, first and foremost, just completely echoing everything you said there. Thank you to the team. It's been an awesome past 8 weeks. I think what really excited me about this presentation was just sort of the blend of research and integration that took place and was so perfectly captured here. So as Paul mentioned, this website demonstration, so that this is accessible for anyone to use and play around with. I really like how Leo mentioned how it's sort of developing and iterating in public. So yeah, it was really exciting to see that. And then at the same time, identifying the limitations and capabilities of these large language models for this specific but very important use case was really important, and I think a research challenge that is not specific to this domain.
Mm-hmm. And what do you see as next steps for this research, Noah?
I think there's so many different things. On the technical aspect, like I think one aspect is potentially using like an open source or publicly available language model and trying to see if there's even like an opportunity or potential to use that rather than these closed source tools, which while very powerful, have their own like caveats and limitations. But then also I think what's really exciting is there's sort of a new type of research which is evolving out of this for us, which is understanding, as was mentioned, like the partners and humanitarian agencies and others who may be interested in using this sort of tool, like how do we tailor it to their use cases? And I think this is sort of like the industry sort of problem that's a little bit outside of academia as well as our comfort zones, which I think is really great to embrace the challenge of and see how far we can take this.
Yeah, it's super cool, right? And I think we can all imagine what this sort of tool could be applied to other than floods. You could sort of like think of other humanitarian relief situations where you would want situational reports, like wildfires or earthquakes or, you know, anything like that. I think we can strive towards that, and that's very exciting. Like adapting this pipeline to all other kind of situations, super cool.
I agree. And thank you, Leo and Noah, for your kind words, your excitement. We are now going to move on to our last panel of the day with the Why These Results Matter panel. So joining us for this panel, we have Chetty Raisi from INRIA, Guy Schumann from RSS Hydro, Alex Lavin from Pestor Labs and ISI, and James Parr from Trillium Technologies. Hello. So I'll open the floor. Maybe, James, we can start with you. And I want to ask you the same question I asked our faculty. What most excited you about watching these presentations today?
Oh, I know, yeah, I'm still sort of reeling from Simon saying I have to bring the wow. But yeah, really, I think, that was, I'm always excited by the FDL team results and always get butterflies. And then, of course, I'm so thrilled just to see the product of the hard work. And I mean, really, you can hear it in the voices of the faculty. There's just so much pride for what you've achieved. And that's actually probably the thing I'm most excited by, really, is this, just this kind of, oh, wow, this is an incredible effort, an amazing body of work by everybody, and everyone's sort of done consistently well. So that for me, that's the thing which I'm sort of most amazed by.
Thanks, James. Chetty, would you like to add anything there?
Yeah. So in fact, FDL for me is a bridge between, AI, machine learning, and space science. And what's really exciting is that when you look at it over the years, we've been precursors. And what is really exciting here and what I see is happening is that we're building a community that's, building projects, having open source, projects, really nice models, really nice publications, and they're building it layer over layer, over the years. And it's really interesting to see that we're kind of opening the door for the future. Like 3-4 years ago, no one thought that we could use SAR, for any kind of prediction, let alone someone think about using a large language model to do kind of like report building. And now you see it happening in 2023. I'm just excited thinking about what's going to happen in 2025, 2026. So it's really exciting to see how this is shaping up every year, and every year we're like pushing a little bit. So yeah, congrats for everyone.
Thank you, Chetty. Guy, what were you most excited to see today?
Of course, first of all, thank you for inviting me to this panel. It's amazing to be part of FDL. I've been joining it since almost the start of FDL Europe as a mentor, and now as a reviewer and a panelist here. It's amazing. I mean, it's truly what James and Chetty said. It's like Hollywood seems always to be a year ahead of what's happening in the world and technology, right? And you suddenly see, well, I've seen that in the movies, haven't I? So FDL is almost like that, right? it's paving the way for what is about to happen in 2 years or becomes more mainstream. And I think, you know, it's funny to see FDL was built on the backbone on ML and space. And we've now seen ML take over the general public, the society, right? But yet there's so much to still do and learn, and actually going into that trustworthiness of ML. The last presentation showed that there's a lot to do with when you are transparent, you can actually build something wonderful. So I think it's FDL is at the forefront of these, you know, groundbreaking things and actually historic breakthroughs. I said it for the 2019 one, putting stuff on board that Cormac mentioned at the beginning. That is a historic breakthrough for remote sensing from space, looking at floods. And I think this reporting that I saw here is probably the ground part of that, right? So if you get all this satellite data, what can you do on the ground for humanitarian response? And, you know, that's it. If you help them with reporting and you get transparency in these reports as well, it's really great. And the speed of it is amazing. So I don't know, it's a lot has been said already. I just think FDL is something that shouldn't be stopped ever, because you can find solutions in 8 weeks and publish in nature style journals, go to conferences and blow everybody's mind. That's it, right? That's what we need. So I stop here, but I'm totally amazed all the time. Very happy to be here.
I am too, Guy. I am too. Alex, what were you pleased to see today?
Yeah, thank you everyone for the presentations. I have to remark that, especially in comparison to any other flavor of AI ML presentations or bodies of work, and Katie mentioned conferences and so on, where there's a few aspects beyond the flashy, fun space sciences and everything that year over year stand out, and saw with every project today. It's working with real world data is, I mean, obviously a need. It is, the complexity and the challenges are just underappreciated at conferences and other academic research circles. But then also the connection to real world utility. There's too much assumption or extrapolation in the community of solving a classification task is equivalent to solving the downstream task. And FDL is always prioritizing that there has to be a connection to that downstream task, and being and propagating that back and making sure that your objective with the machine learning objective is something that is correlated or causal with that downstream utility. I think that's really important, especially when we're talking about Earth and space sciences. And then the last part there is communication. You can build amazing widgets and tools, but if you can't communicate what you've done and how it's important effectively, it's lost on everyone. So I have to commend the groups today and everyone broadly for doing that quite well with rather challenging, deeply technical topics.
Thank you. And this panel is called Why These Results Matter. So Anna, why do you think these results matter?
I mean, I think this year's FDL is a perfect example. Every single one of the challenges has a direct application to something that is pressing. Flood reporting, foundation models to help us monitor our system better, and ultimately CME detection and prediction are all really, really, really important issues. So I think this is one of the things I really have loved so much about being part of the FDL community. And I want to resonate with what James has said before, that I think it is a real community, that people want to keep coming back to the program and want to see where the research is going and start new collaborations. But yeah, one thing I've loved the most about this community is that I think all of the projects that the FDL tackles are always so relevant to what we should be working on these days. And applying ML to that might not help us solve all of these issues, but it most certainly is going to be a very valuable tool in moving towards at solving some of these big issues like climate change and others.
Thank you, Anna. So maybe Guy, how do you see today's research applied for the betterment of society? Why do you think these results matter?
I mean, the perfect example, I'm coming from like hydrology background, extreme events like floods. So I think we haven't been able yet to nail something like flood prediction forecasting really well. And then how you put in like massive resources to report on flood events is extremely difficult. And yet we need to move very fast if we want to change something for the climate crisis. I mean, we're in the middle of it according to most people, so we need to act fast. And I think ML has received a lot of, there's a lot of people that are worried about ML being trustworthy and not too transparent, and that a language model can eventually take over the world, etc. But I think we've seen in FDL what we always see with ML, and you need this hybrid also between ML and application. And you need the science at the forefront, not the ML. So you need really the human brain still in it, luckily. But I think if we push it even a bit more than we've seen today, I think it can actually be used to help us move faster to where we need to go to make a better society and more sustainable, especially in floods and forecasting floods. I think there's something about extreme weather. I know NVIDIA is trying very hard and succeeding almost, I would say, to beat or get at least as good as the models, but they can run so much faster, and then the skills can be improved as well. So I think there's a lot to be said about pushing ML, pushing the boundaries for the betterment of society, and especially if you look at extreme events. I think we need all the help we can get. And if we can't manage to do it with current modeling, then we should embrace ML, let it play, but don't let it play unwatched, right? It's like kids, you have to watch them when they go wild. So do the same with ML. Yeah, I think that's it.
Thanks, Guy. Thank you. Alex, what's the bigger picture in your opinion? Why do you think that these results matter today?
Yeah, building on what he said and some of the comments before about connecting to the downstream utility, and even in the last presentation where the deliverable is this interface that is interactive, and it just makes it crystal clear how it can be applied and useful. And even if it's whether that example or any other end deliverable is a decision-making tool, it doesn't have to solve the problem. It doesn't have to solve AGI, let alone or any sort of SciML advanced breakthrough, but getting slightly more intelligent, data-driven tools in the hands of people that can actually use them without getting bogged down in the details of what is under the hood. That makes it really impactful, far more impactful than what would be like an impactful paper by comparison.
Thank you, Alex. And thank you, everyone. Thank you, James, Guy, Chetty, Anna, for this wonderful panel on why these results matter. We are going to move on to another exciting portion of our showcase for today, which is the annual FDL Awards.
Thank you so much, Lior, and thank you, everybody. At its heart, FDL is about community. We come together every year as a community of researchers to collaborate with each other in solving grand challenges. The teams support each other and make lifelong bonds while learning to think from new perspectives. We want to celebrate the spirit with our yearly awards, our tokens of recognition for excellence in the most important aspects of the FDL community. Everyone, faculty and researchers at some point during the sprint demonstrated all of the qualities we look for in the awards, and it was really hard to decide the winners this year. Before we start, I'd like to give a special mention to Belina Raffi for helping us once again with her magical 60 sessions, which paved the way to the right mindset over the FDL sprint period: community, curiosity, compassion, courage, co-creation, and comedy. But without further ado, our first award is Unexpected Discovery. Just like dirty dishes helped the discovery of penicillin and melting chocolate bars triggered the creation of the microwave, the Unexpected Discovery Award represents the ability to stumble upon a breakthrough. As Plato once said, science is nothing but perception. And the winner for this award is Matt Allen. Matt proposed and architectured the SAR team's masked autoencoder, which provided the first glimpses of feasibility of their scientific endeavor and became a lighthouse, motivating the rest of the team to excel. Thank you so much, Matt. Moving on to our second award, we have Heroic Comeback. Now, heroic comeback is an acknowledgement that when discovering something genuinely new, you have to first fail. But that's only half of the story. Simply failing isn't enough. Getting back up, learning, evolving, and trying again is how legends are made. And the winner for this award is Laura Martinez Ferrer, and with a special mention to the whole SAR team. Laura realized immediately the level of ML complexity required by the SAR challenge. Throughout the summer, and in a very short period of time, she impressively firmly grasped the details of the team's ML pipeline and started designing models and experiments with her own criteria to significantly contribute to the team's results. And Team SAR tried many different models before setting on the results you see today. They ran incredibly complex experiments and put in a huge software engineering effort, failing fast and never giving up, all while keeping a kind, positive, inspirational working environment throughout the 8 weeks. So congratulations, team. Our third award today is Collaborative Spirit. The Collaborative Spirit Award is the representation of FDL's beating heart, interdisciplinary research. It supports the idea that to achieve great things, 2 or, well, 20 are better than 1, and that exchange of knowledge is key. The winners actually of this award are Grace Culver and Paul Darm, with a special mention to the Foundation Model faculty as well. The Foundation Model team not only progressed state-of-the-art LLMs work, but also presented the work seamlessly at all the reviews. They worked as a lean, mean LLM machine. Paul worked tirelessly on the chatbot and its output parsing issues, and Grace was never phased throughout the process from technical issues and design decisions, and built a summarizer to the sniffer inspector to ML for floods. So congrats, team. And our fourth award is Steely-Eyed Operator. In every FDL project, there's a moment where everything can go wrong. This is the implicit contract of the high-risk, high-reward research. If you don't go through this, then your work isn't new enough. Remaining clear-headed and clear-eyed and clear-headed is, in this moment, is a rare quality, and without it, FDL wouldn't deliver. The steely-eyed operator acknowledges the efforts of a team member who has regularly been the calm voice within the storm. And the winner for this award is Chia-Man Hung. Chia-Man was amazingly fast in understanding the Sun-Earth code, and not only found all the bugs, but fixed them all in a single day. Throughout the FDL sprint, she showed her great coding skills and deep understanding of the underlying physics. She majorly pushed the team forward, contributing significantly to both ground-based and onboard branches of the project. Congrats, Chia-Man. And our fifth and final award today is Most Dramatic Pivot. Pivoting is an action taken when new opportunities arise unexpectedly. Sometimes this means starting completely from scratch after much commitment is put into one idea. This Most Dramatic Pivot Award represents these changes in direction, at times unwanted, but definitely necessary. And the winner for this award is Emma Stevenson, with a special mention to the whole Heliophysics onboard team. The Helio team devised a great way of work where half the team worked on onboard while the other half worked on groundwork, and then switched roles around so the whole team had a chance to learn and contribute to the whole challenge picture. At the last minute, after discovering that the team's compression pipeline was limited in performance, Emma implemented a CME classifier. This addition was urgently needed, and Emma demonstrated bravery and great initiative to start from scratch and lead the effort, with major additional challenges in data preparation, model training, and evaluation. This was truly a dramatic pivot. Emma turned the ship around and showed us what is possible to achieve with the right mindset in a limited time frame. Congratulations, Helo team, and congrats, Emma. Thank you so much, everyone. Congratulations to all teams, actually. And it's been honestly a true pleasure to work alongside each and every one of you. Lior, I'll give it back to you.
Thank you so much, Kat, and congratulations, everyone, on your hard and well-deserved awards. As we start to bring today's showcase to a close, I want to take this opportunity once more to thank the ESA Phi Lab. Without our partners at ESA Phi Lab, FDL would not be possible. So a big resounding thank you to the whole team for their continued support and partnership. And at this point, I want to pass the microphone to Nicolas Longipé from the ESA Phi Lab team to share a few words with us all.
Let me share my screen. Here you are. But thanks for the introduction. Well, I'd like indeed to give some final reflection from ESA Phi Lab funding this FDL Europe activity. I hope that you can listen. Yeah. As you may know, Phi Lab explore and apply transformative technologies to Earth observation to accelerate the research and development innovation to help solve some of the biggest challenge that humanity face. That's range from the effect of climate change to our day-to-day life, to our industry, from improving disaster response, identifying new business model in space that can deliver better product to worldwide community. Having said that, in that context, FDL is a fantastic mechanism to discover and nurture potential transformational innovation. As we have discussed previously, I mean, FDL has been achieved tremendous successes in various domains for Earth observation and AI, prediction of rain, monitoring of floods, even embarking flood detection on board a satellite as a proof of concept, training also machine learning model directly on board satellite. So these are some of the latest achievements derived from FDL. With this summer and the Heliophysics onboard team, we did dive in the upcoming VGL mission to be launched within this decade. Achievement from the team looks fantastic given the 8-week time frame that they had. They have different tools, potential CME detection on board, to be deployed on board compilation for fast delivery to the ground, 3D reconstructions, integrating physics principle and equations. I really hope these tools will open additional, let's say, research and consideration by the VGL mission for either on board and or on-ground processing. This summer, I think that you have all followed and saw the announcement of IBM and NASA releasing this foundation model based on harmonized Landsat and Sentinel-2 data. At ESA, we saw this upcoming needs in working in investigating foundation model as well. So there will be some invitation to Thunder later this system to work on that. There will be one on NLP model, and there will be one on multimodal model involving Sentinel missions as well. Meanwhile, with FDL, we wanted to investigate the potential of this foundation model for SAR. SAR is very specific, very hard to understand, very hard to manipulate. You have complex information, SLC, single loop complex. This is very complex and very different from the traditional way of working with Earth observation data and optical data, which is quite simple, let's say, to understand and to manipulate. Already the outcome from the sprints is great. We'll have a benchmark data set, we'll have a pipeline towards foundation model with SAR. I guess the journey to reintegrate the whole information from SAR will be long. For instance, the integration of complex phase information, parametric features, Pauline SAR, even TomoSAR, the integration of long SAR and SAR, synthetic aperture radar, imaging principal processes will be very long to really integrate within the foundation model. But I guess within this first sprint, we have the basis and something which is very solid to build upon. With the foundation model adapters for disaster, this is a fantastic outcome as well. We demonstrate here how we can reduce the time to create reports related to disaster monitoring. This is a great example of the integration of large language model within the field, whereby traditionally we just use computer vision and Earth observation images. So this opens the field whereby the EO insights will be further enriched by textual information coming from internet and other social media information. I really like the fact that the tool is able to provide reference and give sources. I think this is fundamental to for later adoption. And I really hope these toolkits could be further validated, assessed, and then integrated in more operational setting and also tailored to end user needs, whatever the application, fires, floods, or the landslide or whatsoever. On that, I'd like to thank all the FDL researchers for having performed such a great activity over the last 2 months. I hope that you will benefit from this experience for your next professional step. I take the opportunity here to mention that we have open position at ESA and more specifically at the Philab, so please check out this website, job.esa.ent. I'd like also to thank all the faculty members, colleagues from ESA helping during this FDL 2023, especially Anna, but also Giuseppe and Audrey. I'd like to thank the mentors and all the people that have helped during the weekly or bi-weekly review meeting with their common feedback, and also all the companies providing support to this program via computing means. Last but not least, a big thank you to all the colleagues from Trillium Technology involved. I will not name all of them, but I guess Catherine, Cormac, Anna, Anne, Belina, Liano, Jody, Leo, and James, of course. Many thanks to you guys for organizing this fantastic FDL program on behalf of ESA. On that, thank you again, and over to you, Jan. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Nicolas, for your reflections, for your kind words. It was fantastic to have you. And I would now like to bring to the stage James Parr, the founder and CEO of Trillium Technologies and the founder of the Frontier Development Lab. James, would you like to share some closing comments from FDL to see us home?
Yeah, thanks so much, Lior, and really again, and Nicola, awesome to be partnering with Philab as ever, and you guys really have always allowed us to think big and explore the sort of edges of what's possible. And I think that freedom we sort of call it the kind of bow shock, to explore the bow shock of technology is really, you know, it's a fantastic privilege. And so thank you once again. I wanted to sort of just reflect at a high level. And of course, you know, this has been extraordinary, and we want to celebrate and leave on a high, but at the same time, you know, we're in this extraordinary sort of inflection point, I think, with the climate. And I'm going to try and control the screen here so I can show a few slides here. So, you know, just a reminder that this year over the summer, we I don't know if, yeah, here we go. You know, we have had the hottest month since records began. And, you know, some people might argue that this was the Tonga explosion or El Nino event, the reduction of aerosols from shipping, but clearly it's quite a dramatic shift from previous records. And so something's happening. And of course, this has been long predicted by climate models, but really it's a invitation for us, I think, to think bigger and with more veracity. And when we were talking about the impact panel just before, and I was a bit wrong-footed because I was first, so I didn't have a chance to get my thoughts together, but sort of realized that actually what we've seen today with the work of the teams is the extraordinary ability of AI to help with speed. And we saw that certainly with the solar CME prediction work, and in the flood, you know, the mechanisms for creating flood reporting much faster, but also scale, which is the work of the SAR team. And really, this is the amplification of AI. AI is just a tool. It's not anything else. It's not going to come and kill us, but it is a tool that can amplify our human abilities amazingly. And it's really speed and scale, which is the thing which is going to sort of help us get out of the problems that we're now facing with the climate. And we actually have sort of stopped talking about it as being climate change internally. We've sort of been saying, listen, it's actually a habitability crisis because it's more than climate. It's all of these other interconnected things. It's oceanic health, it's biodiversity, habitat loss, water and drought. And these things are all massively interconnected. We're going to need data. We're going to need the observation capabilities of ESA and others, but also we're going to need amazing researchers like you all to really start tackling these problems. And so hopefully we can make a future for all of us. We've been looking at this in a small way, putting a toe in the ocean again in partnership with our colleagues at ESA and Oxford, sort of looking at the bigger problem of how Earth observation and AI can advance planetary stewardship. And this work is on the hopper, and it's going to be complete soon. But really, this is our attempt at creating a roadmap for how we could start to use these technologies for more informed planetary stewardship. So if you're interested in that, please keep in touch. And then lastly, I also wanted to do a shout out to the work the team have been doing in flooding over the years. As you saw at the beginning, we've actually built quite a big portfolio in flood response, and so we've bundled all that into a report on flood resilience with the help of Guy and Biggie, and that's going to be coming up very soon as well. So if you're interested in flooding, please keep an eye out for that. And it's our very first intelligence age publication, which will be on the URL intelligenceage.ai. But of course, I wanted to leave on a bit of a high, and this is an image that was made by one of our FDL teams a couple of years ago. And what you're looking at is the sunspots of a distant star. Actually, I should know which one it is, but let's call it Alpha Centauri. But what's phenomenal about this is it's kind of something that no humans really seen before. We've never been able to see sunspots on stars until we had AI, and it's a kind of amazing reminder that this is such an incredible technology, because it's helping us understand the universe better than we could before. And I was reminded of this lovely quote by Carl Sagan, who's a personal hero of mine, which when he was referencing going to the stars and finally, leaving the cradle of Earth and becoming an interstellar civilization, he describes the people who are looking at this new starlight, and he says they might look like us, but they won't be us. And I've always been intrigued by that comment, and for me, it's about the fact that if we do actually make it, if we do genuinely become an interstellar civilization, we do explore the stars, that we will have had to solve the problems of these generations now, the habitability crisis. These will be problems that we will have overcome. And to do that, we're going to have to be better than we have been before. We'll have to think faster and with more scale and more veracity. And so I wanted to congratulate the teams for being representatives of that new way of being, that new thinking, the beginnings of a new chapter of our species as we become wiser and more able to manage our planet. So with that, I'd like to thank everybody. Thanks so much to the faculty, always just in awe of the effort and passion that you bring to supporting the teams. Of course, the researchers as well, for taking a big leap of faith, and our partners who, of course, we couldn't do this without you. So with that, I'll pass it back to Lior, and thanks so much.
Thank you so much, James, for those words of inspiration. And to reiterate, thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. Heliophysics Onboard, Generalizable SAR, FM Adapters for Disasters. Congratulations on a wonderful showcase. And faculty, partners, special guests, and audience members, thank you for joining us this morning, this afternoon, this evening, wherever you are, and have a wonderful weekend. Goodbye.